Okay, so get this. The funeral industry,
Yeah.
it's like changing like crazy. And, director's corner, right?
Up.
They're always like, they always have their finger on the pulse of like what's happening.
Right.
And this blog post, meeting modern needs,
Yeah.
12 funeral trends your business can't ignore.
Right.
It's like a roadmap
Yeah.
to the future of funeral, director's corner.
Yeah. Their stuff is always so spot on, when it comes to like marketing for funeral homes.
Right.
I mean, they really understand the industry.
They do. It's incredible. And this post really got me thinking about my son's Little League coach's funeral a while back. It was unlike any funeral I'd ever been to.
Really?
They gave out personalized baseballs as favors.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
That's amazing.
And then all the kids played a game afterward right there on the funeral home grounds.
Wow. That's a really unique approach. What was the overall feeling like at the funeral?
It was actually surprisingly uplifting.
Wow.
It really felt like a celebration of his life,
Okay.
not just a sad goodbye.
Right.
And that's one of the big things this blog post talks about,
Yeah.
how funerals are becoming less about mourning and more about celebrating a life well lived.
Interesting.
Like they're calling them celebrations of life now.
That's a really interesting shift.
Yeah.
Instead of focusing solely on the loss, it's about honoring the person's life and the impact they had.
Right.
I'm curious, does the blog post give any examples of how funeral homes are incorporating this trend?
It does.
Okay.
It talks about how people are ditching the cookie cutter approach
Yeah.
and opting for funerals that truly reflect the person's passions.
Right.
They actually suggest that funeral homes consider offering more flexible venue options, like outdoor spaces or museums,
Okay.
to accommodate these kinds of personalized celebrations.
Yeah.
Imagine like a sports-themed funeral for a diehard fan,
Yeah.
or a nature-inspired gathering for someone who loved the outdoors.
Yeah.
I mean, the possibilities are endless.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's about making the funeral a more personal and meaningful experience for everyone involved.
Absolutely.
And speaking of personalization, the blog post also mentions this huge trend of incorporating technology into funerals.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen that at all?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Live streaming services,
Uh-huh.
online memorials,
Right.
digital guest books.
Yeah,
It's becoming really common.
it is.
I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
Families are often spread out geographically these days.
Right.
So technology allows everyone to participate in the service
Of course.
and feel connected, even if they can't be there in person.
Yeah, and it also creates a way to preserve memories
Yes.
for future generations, right? It's like
Absolutely.
building a digital legacy
Right.
for the person who has passed away.
It's like having a permanent record of their life and the stories that people shared about them.
Exactly.
It's really amazing when you think about it.
It is.
And it's not just about technology.
Right.
The blog post also talks about how people are becoming much more eco-conscious
Oh, interesting.
when planning funerals.
Okay, what kinds of things are they doing?
Well, it's everything from choosing green burial options and biodegradable urns
Okay.
to considering alternative methods like water cremation.
Wow.
They're even suggesting that funeral homes look into implementing sustainable practices within their own operations. It sounds like people are really looking for ways to minimize their environmental impact,
Yeah.
even in their final farewell.
It's about aligning values with their choices,
Right.
even in death.
And you know what else I thought was fascinating?
What's that?
They talk about this concept of memorial forests.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard of those?
Yes, instead of traditional cemeteries,
Yeah.
they're natural burial grounds where ashes are interred at the base of a tree. It's a beautiful way to return to the earth and become part of a living ecosystem.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
It just feels so much more connected to nature and the cycle of life.
It's definitely appealing to those who seek a more natural and eco-friendly approach to burial.
And then there's this whole trend of creative cremation options,
Okay.
like cremation jewelry,
Yeah.
art, unique urns,
Uh.
all these different ways to keep a loved one's memory close in a more personal and tangible way.
It's a really interesting shift from the traditional urn on the mantelpiece.
Right.
People are looking for more individualized ways to memorialize their loved ones.
Right.
And these creative options provide a tangible connection to the deceased.
Exactly.
It's like carrying a piece of them with you always.
I remember seeing a beautiful piece of cremation jewelry once,
Right.
a necklace with a small pendant that held a tiny amount of ashes.
Wow.
It was so delicate and personal.
That's nice.
The blog post also mentions the rise of pet funerals. It seems that more and more people are choosing to honor their pet's memory
Uh-huh.
with dedicated services and memorials.
It speaks to the evolving definition of family
Right.
and the deep bonds we form with our animal companions.
It really does.
Yeah,
It's like the funeral industry is recognizing that loss comes in many forms.
right.
And they're trying to meet the needs of a wider range of relationships and experiences.
It's definitely an interesting time to be in the funeral industry.
I agree.
There's so much change and innovation happening,
Yeah.
and it's really pushing the boundaries of what a funeral can be.
I agree. It's not just about burying the dead anymore.
Right.
It's about celebrating life,
Mm-hmm.
honoring memories,
Yeah.
and providing support and comfort to those who are grieving.
I'm curious to hear more about that. Let's dive into that in the next part.
Okay, that was good.
Good.
Okay.
So DIY and home funerals.
Yeah,
That definitely seems like a departure from the traditional funeral home setting.
it is. And I think it speaks to this desire for greater control over the funeral process. The blog post talks about how home funerals allow families to incorporate their own traditions and rituals,
Okay.
which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
They can create a truly personal and unique experience that really reflects the person who has passed away.
It's about empowerment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Taking ownership of the farewell and making it a truly personal and intimate experience.
Right.
It can be incredibly meaningful for the family
Absolutely.
to be involved in every aspect of the process.
And it might even help with the grieving process, being more hands-on and creating something special to honor their loved one.
Of course.
And, this whole DIY thing,
Yeah.
it ties into another trend that's becoming more common.
Okay.
Pre-planning.
Oh, yeah.
More and more people are taking the time to plan their own funerals in advance.
Right.
So they can make sure everything is done according to their wishes.
That's really interesting. It makes sense, though. Planning your own funeral takes a huge burden off your loved ones.
Right.
Especially during such an emotional time.
Right.
It allows you to really think about what you want and make decisions without the pressure of grief.
Exactly. Plus, it gives you the chance to personalize things down to the smallest detail.
Wow.
You can choose the music, the readings, the type of service you want, everything.
That's great.
The blog post even suggests that funeral homes start offering pre-planning resources and consultations as part of their services.
Sure.
It's a great way to meet the growing demand for this kind of personalized approach.
It's smart business, too.
Right.
It shows that funeral homes are listening to their clients and adapting to their changing needs.
Right.
And you know what else is interesting?
What's that?
The blog post talks about the growing role of grief support and aftercare services.
Yeah.
It's not just about the funeral anymore.
Right.
It's about providing ongoing support to families as they navigate the grieving process.
Yeah, it's like recognizing that grief doesn't end with the service, right?
It's a journey. And families need support along the way.
They do.
I think that's a really important aspect of the evolving funeral industry.
I agree. It's about providing a more holistic approach to death and dying,
Right.
addressing the emotional and spiritual needs of the family,
Yeah.
as well as the practical arrangements.
So we're talking about things like grief counseling, support groups, maybe even online resources and communities.
Exactly. It's about creating a safe space for people to share their experiences,
Right.
connect with others who understand,
Yeah.
and find the help they need.
This whole idea of death doulas fits into this trend too, right? They
Yeah.
provide support and guidance during the end-of-life process,
Yes,
both for the individual and their family.
they do. They can help with everything from pre-planning and advanced directives to emotional and spiritual support during the dying process.
Right.
They can also be a valuable resource for the family after the death.
Right. Helping them navigate the grieving process and connect with other support services. It's really about offering a more compassionate and personalized approach to death and dying.
That's amazing.
Hmm.
It sounds like the funeral industry is becoming much more focused on providing comprehensive care and support,
Yeah.
which I think is really important.
Right.
It's not just about the logistics of the funeral anymore. It's about recognizing the emotional and spiritual needs of the people involved.
And you know what else is interesting?
What's that?
The blog post talks about the rise of direct cremation as a simple and affordable option for those who don't want a traditional funeral service.
Right.
It's like the industry is recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to death and dying.
Yeah, that's a good point. Direct cremation offers more flexibility and affordability,
Exactly.
which can be really appealing to some people.
Right.
It allows them to focus on memorialization in their own way, without the added expense of a full-blown service.
Right. It's like the funeral industry is recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to death and dying.
Right.
There's so many different options available now.
There are.
And it's all about finding what feels right for you and your family.
That's exactly it. It's about offering choices, flexibility, and personalized care.
Right.
It's about empowering people to make decisions that align with their values, beliefs, and budget.
Right.
And it's about recognizing that everyone grieves differently and
Yeah.
that there's no right or wrong way to say goodbye.
Director's Corner really nailed it with this blog post. They've covered such a wide range of trends, and they've done a great job of explaining why these changes are happening
Yeah.
and what they mean for the future of the funeral industry.
I think they've highlighted a really important point, that the funeral industry is evolving to meet the changing needs and values of our society.
Right.
It's becoming more personalized, more tech-savvy, more eco-conscious,
Right.
and more focused on providing comprehensive care and support. It's definitely an exciting time to be watching this space.
It is.
But before we get carried away thinking about the future, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned from this deep dive into Director's Corner's insights.
Okay.
What are some of the key takeaways that stand out to you?
Well, for me, one of the biggest takeaways is just how diverse, the options are becoming.
Yeah.
It's not just about the traditional funeral anymore.
Right.
There are so many ways to celebrate a life and honor someone's memory.
Right.
From personalized celebrations to eco-friendly burials to creative memorialization options.
I agree. The funeral industry is becoming much more flexible and adaptable,
Right.
which I think is a really positive development.
Yeah.
It's about meeting people where they are
Right.
and offering them choices that align with their values and their budget.
And it also seems like the industry is becoming much more focused on providing support and guidance
Yeah,
both before and after the death.
it is.
The rise of pre-planning grief counseling.
Yeah. And even death doulas speaks to this shift toward a more holistic approach to death and dying.
That's a great point. It's not just about the logistics of the funeral anymore. It's about addressing the emotional, spiritual, and practical needs of the individual and their family
Right.
throughout the entire process.
And I think that's something funeral homes need to be aware of.
Yeah.
The old ways of doing things are changing.
Yeah.
And families are looking for more than just a basic service.
Right.
They want personalization, they want options,
Uh-huh.
and they want support.
Absolutely. Funeral homes that can adapt to these changing needs and
Right.
offer a more comprehensive range of services will be the ones that thrive in the years to come.
It's like Director's Corner says in their blog post,
Yeah.
funeral homes need to be willing to embrace innovation
Right.
and think outside the box.
They need to be proactive, not reactive.
Right.
They need to be listening to their clients and anticipating their needs.
Right.
And they need to be willing to challenge the status quo and create new ways of honoring life and supporting those who are grieving.
So what does this all mean for us?
Well,
As someone who's always been fascinated by the funeral industry,
yeah,
I'm excited to see how these trends continue to unfold.
me too. It's a time of great change and opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think the industry is poised for some really innovative and meaningful developments in the years to come.
I think the key takeaway here is that the funeral industry is no longer about simply burying the dead.
Right.
It's about celebrating life,
Yeah.
honoring memories,
Right.
and providing support and comfort to those who are grieving.
Beautifully said. And it's a reminder that even in the face of loss,
Yeah.
there's still so much beauty, meaning, and connection to be found.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
This deep dive into Director's Corner's insights has been incredibly thought-provoking.
It has.
It's amazing to see how much the funeral industry is changing and evolving
Yeah.
to meet the needs of today's families.
I agree. It's been a fascinating conversation.
Thanks for joining me on this journey.
Of course.
Until next time, keep exploring and keep learning.
Always.
There's always something new to discover.